I grew up in a two-bedroom house that always felt slightly mismeasured, like someone built it by memory instead of blueprints. Nothing dramatic ever happened there. No rumors. No curse land. That is why what happened makes no sense. My bedroom door never had a lock. Not when I was 6. Not when I was 10. Not ever. My father removed it because I used to lock myself inside during tantrums. After that, the latch was gone. The handle turned freely. Anyone could open it, except sometimes it would not open. The first time it happened, I was 8. I remember because I had just learned multiplication tables and was reciting them under my breath while lying on the floor. The house was quiet in the afternoon way that made sounds travel too clearly. Ceiling fan ticking, a pressure cooker hissing in the kitchen, my mother humming. I got up to go drink water. I turned the handle. It stopped halfway, not jammed. Not stiff. It stopped like something was holding it from the other side. I twisted harder. The handle rotated fully, but the door did not move. I laughed at first. I assumed my sister was playing a joke. I knocked and told her to open it. Nothing. I knocked harder. The humming in the kitchen stopped. I heard my mother call my name from the hallway. I froze. Her voice was coming from outside the door, but I was inside the room. She tried the handle. It did not move. She pulled. The door did not budge. There was no lock. My father forced it open with his shoulder. The door swung inward smoothly, without resistance, like nothing had ever held it. They inspected the hinges, the frame, the handle. Nothing was wrong. They blamed humidity. That explanation worked until it started happening only at night. Not every night. Random nights. Always after I turned the lights off. Always after I lay down. The handle would rotate freely, but the door would not open. And every time I heard breathing. Not loud, not dramatic. Slow, patient, from the other side. I never told him that part. When I was 11, I tested it. I left my room, stood in the hallway, and closed the door from outside. I turned the handle. Perfectly normal. I went inside, closed it, and tried again. Stuck. The air inside the room felt heavier, like the walls were leaning in slightly. I waited. Minutes passed. Then I heard the breathing again, close to the door, as if someone was standing just inches away, inhaling through their nose, exhaling through their mouth. I screamed. My parents rushed in and opened the door instantly. That was the first night my father slept in my room. The breathing did not stop. It moved closer to my bed. Years later, when we moved houses, my parents sold that door separately. Someone wanted old wooden fittings. The buyer called 2 days later and asked one question. Why does it only stick from one side? I walked home from school every day. Same route, same timing, same bus stop, even though I never took the bus. It was just a landmark, a concrete slab, a faded timetable. No inch. When I was 9, I started noticing something off. Some days, the bus stop was closer to my school. Some days, it was closer to my house. I measured with my steps, counted them, marked cracks in the road. The distance changed. I assumed construction, road repairs, my imagination, until one evening, I waited there. I do not know why. I just stopped and stood on the slab. It was almost sunset. The street lights were flickering on. No traffic, no people. A bus came. Old, rusted, no route number. The headlights were on, but dim, like they were tired. The doors opened. Inside was empty. No driver. I did not get on. The doors closed, and the bus drove off slowly, like it was disappointed. The next day, the bus stop was gone. Just bare road. I asked my friends. They said it had always been there. I asked shopkeepers. They looked confused and pointed to empty space. That night, I dreamed of the bus. It was parked outside my house. The doors were open. I could hear breathing inside. The next week, the bus stop returned, in a different position, closer to my house. I stopped using that road. Years later, I returned as an adult. The area was unchanged. The bus stop was there. I stood on it again. The bus arrived instantly. This time, there was a driver. He looked exactly like me. Older, thinner. He smiled and said, "You are late." There was a cupboard in my childhood home that did not belong to anyone. That sounds harmless, but every other cupboard did. One was for clothes, one for books, one for winter blankets. This one sat in the corner of the hallway, narrow and tall, with a warped wooden door that never quite shut properly. It was always empty. My parents never put anything in it. When I asked why, my mother said it smells. I never noticed a smell. What I noticed was the sound. At night, when the house settled into that deep quiet where even the ceiling fan sounded intrusive, I could hear something from inside the cupboard. Not movement, not scratching, breathing. Slow, uneven breathing, like someone asleep but struggling with their nose. I was 6 when I first heard it. I assumed it was pipes, or wind, or my imagination doing what children's imaginations do. But I noticed something else. The breathing stopped when I said my name out loud. Not louder, not softer. Stopped. I tested it. I whispered my name toward the cupboard door. The breathing paused, then resumed, slower than before. I stopped sleeping facing the hallway after that. By the time I was 8, the cupboard had become part of my routine. I avoided looking at it when passing. I never touched the handle. I never stood too close. One afternoon, I came home early from school. The house was empty. The lights were off. The hallway felt longer than usual. The cupboard door was open. Inside was nothing, just darkness that seemed deeper than the space allowed. I stood there longer than I should have. Then I heard my name. Not spoken. Breathed. My name came out between an inhale and exhale, distorted, like the sound had to squeeze through something narrow to escape. I slammed the door shut and ran outside until my parents returned. That night, my father installed a latch. The cupboard door stayed closed after that. The breathing continued. As I grew older, it adapted. When I was 10, the breathing matched my rhythm. When I slowed my breath, it slowed too. When I held my breath, it paused, then resumed with a slight delay, as if correcting itself. When I was 12, it started knocking. Once, softly, only when I was alone. I never told anyone. I understood instinctively that if I describe it out loud, it would get closer, more defined. That understanding did not come from logic. It came from fear. The cupboard began to appear in my dreams. Always closed, always breathing. When I was 14, I woke up one night and realized the breathing was no longer coming from the hallway. It was coming from inside my room. I sat up slowly. The cupboard door stood open at the foot of my bed. That should not have been possible. The cupboard was not in my room. It had never been in my room. Inside it, I could see something pale pressed against the back wall, like a shape try to push forward without fully entering the space. I did not scream. I did not move. I heard my name again, clearer this time. Shaped properly. Spoken like someone practicing pronunciation. The next morning, the cupboard was back in the hallway. My parents blamed stress. Hormones. Night terrors. The latch was still intact. At 16, I started finding things inside it. My school notebook. A sock I had lost months ago. A photograph of me asleep. I burned that photo in the sink and watched the plastic curl and melt. That night, the cupboard knocked 3 times. Firmly, I moved out for college as soon as I could. The house felt lighter without me, like it had been holding its breath. Years passed. I built a life. I stopped dreaming about hallways. Then my mother called and told me they were selling the house. She asked me to come collect anything I wanted. The cupboard was still there. The latch was gone. The door was slightly open. Inside, taped neatly to the back wall, was a piece of paper. On it was my name, written perfectly, in my handwriting. I did not take anything from the house. A month later, I received a package with no return address. Inside was the cupboard handle, and the sound of breathing when I held it close.